Hi everyone, and welcome once again to my video blog. You might be wondering where I've been gone for the last 3 weeks. I haven't made a video in a little while. Well, the answer is I've been pretty sick for the last 2 weeks or so, and I just really haven't had the energy to make a video. I almost completely lost my voice last Friday, and you might still be able to hear my voice. I've had some pretty bad cough and just a general lack of energy and motivation. But I have some good news. It's quite likely that I'll be part of a transgender calendar, and you can see the project page at thetcal.org. I'll post a link in annotations. And I think the goal of the project is to show transgender youths that there's trans people out there who transition and who end up happy and successful, and just generally to be out there and be supportive and inspirational to people. So that's pretty exciting, and I'll have to have a professional picture taken by the end of the month for the calendar, which I'll probably show you, put it on MySpace or something. Apart from that, I'm probably going to be pretty busy for the end of the month, so don't be surprised if I don't make another video for some time. It turns out my girlfriend's birthday is coming up, and it's possible we'll go to the restaurant for her birthday. I'm also planning to make her birthday dinner, and then Halloween is coming up, and I've been invited to 4 parties. One on the Wednesday before Halloween, one on Thursday, 2 on Friday, and I'm hoping to be able to attend most or all of these parties, but I'll have to see if I can make it. And then next week, my supervisor is going away on a trip, so in addition to being TA for his class, I have to teach the class myself. And then the assignment for that class is due pretty soon, the first assignment, so I'll have to grade something like 20 copies, probably. And on top of that, I'll be going to a conference on November 4th to present my work, so I have to prepare some slides for the conference, etc., etc. So it looks like the end of this month will be pretty busy, but it's mostly pretty exciting, good stuff going on, so that's pretty good. Recently I've also started, well, I've always kind of been interested in electronic music in general, and I've decided, to try making some myself. I've kind of always wanted to make music, so I purchased this book, well, synthesizer cookbook, and I started to read up on electronic music and synthesizers and all that, and I'm planning to write a little program to actually try and compose some electronic music on my computer myself and explore all the possibilities in terms of sound generation. And I don't know if that's going to actually lead to anything, but maybe someday, if I actually make a little piece of music that I feel is not shameful, then I'll probably post it on YouTube. Okay, so on to today's topic. Well, I wanted to talk again about non-op transsexuals, what it means to be a non-op transsexual. I've made a video about this before. Basically, I, myself, as a transsexual, have made a choice that I will not be having sexual reassignment surgery. And it's not really a reason of money. I mean, money's part of it, it's expensive. But I've made a choice not to have sexual reassignment surgery because I feel that although, it gives a pretty, visually realistic result in most cases, I feel that the risks, are kind of high, and that the downsides are kind of annoying. There's multiple downsides to SRS, like having to dilate for the rest of your life, the risks of complications, it's a very major surgical procedure, the risk of not being able to orgasm for the rest of your life. And while it's true, I think that most transsexuals end up with good results, it does happen that some transsexuals, they just don't have a sex life after SRS. Not to mention, a lot of people after SRS end up simply having zero testosterone. That makes them tired and depressed, And because of that, they end up having to take testosterone injections, to supplement themselves in testosterone. And I just feel like, if I can kind of be okay with the fact that my genitalia is the way it is, and it doesn't keep me from passing and living my life as a female, and it doesn't really disgust me, I've gotten used to it by now, then I think, it's an acceptable option for me to just keep it. And some people, I think, misunderstand me when I say that. They think it means I don't want to have a vagina, that I don't want to have female genitalia. And that's not true. The truth is, if there was a surgery, a procedure, something that could give me fully functioning female reproductive organs, I would take that opportunity. I would love to be able to one day be pregnant and give birth to a child of my own. And if that became possible someday, then I would be very interested, in actually getting that surgery. But today, the SRS that you can get, I feel, is mostly a cosmetic procedure, and it has its downsides. And it's just something, that I'm just not really interested in making that sacrifice, especially considering that, I'm with a woman, and in the foreseeable future I'll only be involved romantically and sexually with women, and having a penis, kind of works well in that context, I have to say. So, it works well for me. It's not the way I'd wanted to have been born, but it's my body, and I just chose to deal with it, because for me the most important is really just living my life as a woman. And what I felt was most important to achieve that goal was to be very passable, which is why I've had facial surgery and a breast augmentation and all that. And I feel that I've achieved my goal of passing, pretty much 100% now. And I'm pretty happy with that. But now, why am I talking about this exactly? Why am I bringing this up again? Well, first of all, because I feel like post-ops in the trans community are often rejected. And, lots of us are simply not out there, not open about the fact that we're post-op, because it's simply considered by many transsexuals and many gender therapists to be wrong, Many people will define being transsexual as being, someone who wants to have a sex change or has had a sex change. And I feel this is just incorrect. I feel, to me, that being transsexual means that your gender identity, the gender that you feel that you are inside, doesn't match the sex that you are physically, that you were born with, and that because of that you feel driven to transition because of a very strong desire to live as the gender you feel you are inside. I feel that's the definition of transsexual. I feel that being transsexual is something that you are born that way, and it's something that's inside you, that relates to the way your brain has been masculinized or feminized by hormones in the womb. And it's just a property of your being. To me, being transsexual is independent of whether or not you actually want or do end up with any kinds of surgeries or any kinds of hormone treatments. It's simply a state of being. Just like your sexual orientation, You're either born gay or straight, and it's just a part of your being. And people have that misconception about homosexuality too. People feel that homosexuality is a matter of your behavior, where in actuality it is not. Sexual orientation is defined as the gender you're attracted to. So a homosexual man would be a man who's attracted to men. And if a homosexual man got really, really drunk and had sex with a woman, but didn't feel any attraction during or afterwards, that wouldn't make him bisexual or straight. He would still be a homosexual man. And in the same way, it's physically possible for a straight woman to have sex with a woman and to remain straight, Like, your actions and what you are in terms of your sexual orientation do not actually need to correspond, and do not always correspond in practice. And I think it's, possibly the same thing for transsexuals. Like, there's a lot of transsexuals who simply don't transition because, they're in situations where it's very hard for them. Just think, if you're a poor child in Africa, you could be born a poor child in Africa and be transsexual. then you're simply not going to have the option to transition. It's just impossible for you because your family is extremely poor and you live in a place that's extremely conservative. So it just doesn't happen. But people who reject non-op transsexuals, I think they do it because of this notion. They feel that people like me make a choice to not have this surgery, but they feel that when you're transsexual, having the sexual reassignment surgery is simply not a choice. They feel that they feel such disgust with their genitals that they have no option but to get the sexual reassignment surgery, and that it's not a choice, and that getting this surgery is part of the definition of being transsexual. And I think this is, and for this reason they just try to, reject non-op transsexuals, tell us that we're not transsexuals, that, you're cross-dressers, you're perverts, you're autogynephiliacs, you're transgenderists, you're blah blah blah, you're everything, but you're not a transsexual, you're not part of our group, we don't want to have anything to do with you. And I feel that this attitude is very counterproductive, and I feel it's very similar to something that happens in the gay community, whereas gay people sometimes want to reject bisexual people. Why? I think it's very simple. It's because bisexual people, when you're a bisexual man or a bisexual woman, you have a tendency to be attracted by people of both genders. So if you have the possibility of being in a relationship, just because it's much easier, much simpler to have a relationship with people of the same sex, bisexual women, for example, I think almost always end up in relationships with men. Why? Because there's a lot more straight men than gay women or bisexual women out there. So if you're a bisexual woman, there's just a lot of men that are just naturally, going to hate on you, make themselves available, and it's just so much easier to be in a relationship, with a straight person. But at the same time, a bisexual person could be in a relationship with a person of the same sex, and then be in a relationship with someone of the opposite sex, and then someone of the same sex again. So it kind of seems like bisexual people, just have a choice as to who they end up in relationships with. You can be bisexual but only have straight sex, or only have gay sex, and it kind of is a choice. And gay people don't like that idea, because it's like bisexual people kind of give them this impression that your sexual orientation is a choice. Bisexual people have the choice of whether they have sex with people of the same sex or not. And that really irks some gay people, because they're like, no, my sexual orientation is not a choice. And I refuse, to have that idea put in my face, and put forward. And I think that gay people are completely right that sexual orientation is not a choice. Where they're wrong is that sexual behavior is a choice. You do choose who you have sex with. You could choose to never have sex. It's conceivable. It's very difficult, but it's feasible. And so, what bisexual people do is they choose who they have sex with, and they can make these choices. But just as for gay people, bisexual people don't choose who they're attracted to, it's just a natural thing. And, if you could peek into their minds and see who they're actually attracted to, they probably couldn't suppress their sexual urges towards both genders, it's just a part of who they are. And I think, people need to understand that. And then I think in the same way for transsexuals, whether or not you have sexual reassignment surgery is a choice. Obviously it is. You're paying money to a surgeon, you're picking the surgeon, you're picking the date, you're choosing to do it. Transition is a choice. You choose to transition, you choose to have a sex change, you choose when and how. And granted, I think it's probably the right choice. If you're dying to have a sex change, then that probably is the right choice for you. But it is a choice. What isn't a choice is who you are and how you feel inside. What isn't a choice is the nature of your being and the way you were born as a transsexual. And I feel, that probably needs to be clarified. Just as for post-op transsexuals who couldn't bear, I couldn't really bear to live as a man. I couldn't really stand that idea. I hated it, and I felt like I needed to transition, and that I needed to have facial surgery, and to have a breast augmentation and all those things. And I did it because I felt that was the best for me. But I feel like it's really annoying when people come and they try to define, what's a transsexual, who's the true transsexuals and who's not. And I think you should really be careful with that because, people who tend to make these accusations, I think, tend to be older transsexuals, who transition in their 40s. The article that I found, was written by an older transsexual woman on a website called tssi.org, and she was saying, that being a non-op transsexual is an oxymoron and being extremely hostile. And, I would tell that woman that, you should be careful with the judgments that you make, because a lot of people in the trans community make judgments based on a bunch of random criteria too, There's people who think that if you haven't expressed transsexual desires, in early childhood, then you're not really transsexual. And I could say, well, if you transitioned in your 40s, maybe you're not really transsexual. If you were really transsexual, then you would have felt the need to transition so bad that you would have done it earlier. But the fact is that's not how it works. That's not really how it works in the real world. And I disagree with these people too. I disagree with people who say that, if as a child you didn't, if you were a little boy physically who was in reality a transsexual female and you didn't, refuse to be called a boy and refuse to wear boys' clothes, as early as 3 years old, if you didn't have those behaviors and you're not trans, then I say, that's just not true, It's not every transsexual child that, blatantly refuses the gender labels that are put on him or her. It's not everybody that reacts the same way to their condition. And I feel like the fact that I don't have a huge amount of disgust with my genitals doesn't change the fact that I really, truly, honestly, strongly wish that I was born with an entirely, completely female body. It just means that I can stand the idea of living like this in my current condition, and that, to me, that sounds better than getting an expensive, complicated, risky cosmetic procedure. But if you think that SRS is right for you, I think all the power to you. I think you should do what you need to be happy. I think you should do what you need to live your life without feeling extremely uncomfortable in your body. But I don't think you should run around telling people how to live their lives and what should make them happy and what shouldn't make them happy and what's a real transsexual and what's not. Because what's going to end up happening if people do that is simply that the trans community is going to be split into factions of people that don't talk to one another, that people won't really understand us, the transsexual community, because they won't see a community, they'll just see a bunch of people that are completely disconnected. And at the same time, if you're telling young transsexuals that if they don't want to get SRS, they aren't real transsexuals, and they can't get hormones, and they can't transition, guess what's going to happen? Those who really want hormones and really want to transition are going to get SRS, even though it's not necessarily what they wanted or needed. And that's just, another problem. You're just trying to force people to fit into a mold, and they will try to fit themselves into that mold, even though it's not necessarily what they want or need. Okay, so that's what I had to say for today. Feel free to post comments, feel free to make a video response, and to share your opinion. And you're obviously allowed to disagree with me, but please keep the discussion civilized and avoid hateful comments. Okay, bye bye people.